What in the altered states is going on? It's time. Whenever I go to the big picture, it's always like, oh, gotta back up. Sorry, everybody. Oh, look at this. I have an extra chin that goes with my other 10 extra chins. Why would you watch this show? I don't make it easy on you. Thank you so much for being here. I punish you for watching this show, and I'm very sorry about that. I'm that kind of person. John Weber here on Starbase 80. This week is, it seems like a punishment, but it's not. And I'm going to explain that to the person who really needs the explanation. And that, of course, would be my co-host and the first officer here at Starbase 80. It's Mr. Flobo Boyce, ladies and gentlemen.
It's not a holodeck episode. Yes. I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
What was funny to me was, okay, so anybody who hasn't been watching these previous episodes previous to this one, I've been showing Flobo episodes that were based on the holodeck where anything can happen. And the one thing that does not happen ever is Flobo liking it. Flobo does not enjoy holodeck episodes.
Yeah.
Well, let's dive in. I mean, this one's called Threshold. The very first scene, we see Tom Paris, the great pilot of Star Trek Voyager. Voyager is the ship. He is, ham-fistedly white-knuckling his way in this. I always find these shuttlecrafts, especially on Voyager, to be so like baby toy looking. They're just, they don't look badass at all.
Yeah, I mean the camera shake is one of the oldest tricks in Star Trek. But it's really weird on Voyager. It's like they're shaking and they fall down to like this carpet that smells like mildew. Like it goes through the screen. like they're in the soundstage the whole time. Forgot. So I get you, bro.
It's so true. Every time I imagine falling down on that floor, it smells like beer and like, pool table dust or whatever. That very first scene, he's pushing the speed past warp 10, and that means infinite velocity.
Ooh.
And then the darn thing blows up.
Can I just jump in here and say, the episode is like not your favorite. You go right into talking about it. We never do that. We usually dick around for half an hour before we get to work.
We do, but there's a point to this particular one, which is, okay, now first off, I love that he's like, it's breaking up. It's breaking. And then they cut to B'Elanna, Torres, and Harry looking on, and there's Tom Paris sitting on the floor of a holodeck.
Yeah. I was like, you son of a... Oh, it's over. Again, that's like 2 weeks in a row. I ruined your bit. I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry. You didn't ruin the bit.
But I'm like, yeah, okay. A holodeck episode. Thanks a lot, John. Oh, wait, God, thank you. Thank you.
Just a little bit of holodeck.
Yeah, just a little bit of a spring. I could take that. That makes sense. That's why you have a holodeck, run simulations and call it a day.
And it's very exciting. We are looking at this right, the holodeck episode. Leo Genesek in comment says, psych.
It is weird because he spells it correctly. I was like, wait a minute.
Craig Lubin says, how many of those shuttles does Voyager have? They lose one every episode, it seems. Well, that was a holodeck version, so they didn't necessarily lose that one.
But to answer Craig's question, definitely Acme. That's where they get.
I believe ships can replicate shuttlecraft. Didn't we? We discovered that, like in Prodigy. So I don't know if that's super canon.
That's a wizard did it, really. The ships could replicate a ship.
And as for me questioning why anyone would watch this show, Keith Jacobson says, if we like the show, what does that say about us? That says you're dedicated and generous.
Oh, I was going to say, it says you're slumming it with us. You can do a lot more classier
Well,
things.
It's kind of
Thank
true. Actually, Keith is about 1,000 times smarter than me when it comes to Star Trek. I really hope the comments can help us out as we go through this one, because there's a lot for a show that is generally regarded, and I'm giving it away. Like, I gave it away in the description, Flobo, and I don't know if that was a mistake or I just said, this is the one with the lizard babies.
Okay, you know what? I can't say this anymore. I can't hold this back in. This episode isn't bad.
What?
It isn't bad. I thought I was going to hate it. I use it for an example of what a bad episode is, but as I get into it, I don't think it was that bad. Is it flawed? Lots of them. Yes, there are flaws for days, but it's not bad.
I am so happy. I never knew I could be this happy about Threshold or Voyager.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that makes me so happy. I haven't had you watch an episode for weeks that you even somewhat liked.
And it's obviously my problem.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Honestly, I am the chef, and what I try to do, what people may or may not know about this show is, and I need to write a standard intro.
They know.
Flobo is a recent fan, and he really enjoys the new Star Trek, which I enjoy as well. And he and I bonded over that. And then I said, we should really go back and watch some old episodes. And he was like, yeah, sure. So that's how Starbase 80 came about. We watch what's considered not new Trek. I don't know that you would call it old Trek, but yeah, it is old Trek.
Sure.
And for the most part, Flobo has been relatively unimpressed.
I adjust my expectations accordingly. My thing is, I feel like some shows get all the praise and some shows don't, and some shows get passes. So I'm just always that curmudgeon, contrarian person. But I don't do it out of malice. It's just kind of like, wait a minute. Hold on here.
I get it, because on behalf of other sort of old school fans, I think we tend to take everything in order.
Yeah.
So we always regard, like, it would be like trying to get somebody who's a clergy of the church to badmouth their church.
Absolutely.
You know, so a lot of us are like, the greatest Star Trek was the first, TOS, the original series, and then Next Generation, and then pretty much like rank them all as they go, always swearing that the older is the better. That's what the older fans tend to do.
Oh, absolutely. And if you guys watch this show, or if the show Commander's Log, this is the reason why I stick with most of my analogies, right? Because I grew up, my first Green Lantern was Kyle Rayner, and he always will have a soft spot because I'm a 90s kid, but my favorite is Jon Stewart. And be able to appreciate things cool. But I was also that fan with the Archie franchise, big Archie Comics fan. Didn't like Riverdale. I thought Riverdale or Katie Keene, the spinoff, was like totally off the mark for me. I was like, these kids nowadays. So I get that as well. But when I say I like Discovery, or I say, hey, look, Strange New Worlds is great, but there are some critical errors here. Everyone goes, you don't understand. It's like, wait a minute. And so that's why I kind of do that here. But as bad as I thought this was going to be, and it is absolutely silly as hell. We'll get into it.
No, you're not wrong.
The main crime of Threshold, if there is one, is the opposite of most shows, is that they had 2 or 3 episodes of story and it crammed into one, right? That's what it was. You're not
the first person to say that. That is a among the professionals who made the show, they agree with you.
And that's not because I want to see more lizard people, but you do the hyper evolution. And I guess, can I jump ahead, or are we going to hold off of that?
Yeah, go right ahead. I mean,
so you do evolution, and so you go beyond what humans are, and it's now we're like this super being, which happens to look like a lizard. And so it's kind of cool to say how life starts, like the primordial soup. So you go, okay, we have to give this person a mate. Okay, who is a female? Okay, it's a captain, and they have kids. Like that. I was like, this guy was transforming for 45 minutes. How did they? A salamander takes 5 months to have kids. What the? So like that's kind of weird, but the idea of it, I'm on board.
Yeah, time was very strange in this episode, and I think there's an explanation for that. Maybe in the chat, maybe in my head, we can find the explanation for that by the time we get to the end. But yeah, really, as Flobo and I are going through this kind of fast, like stones skipping across the surface of a lake, I will explain to you why. I don't consider the plot to Star Trek Voyager, the episode Threshold, I don't consider the plot that important. Some really important things happen in this episode, honestly, but the plot, there's going to be a reference to it later, but there were in Star Trek, there were episodes where they basically would go, hey, remember that movie?
Yeah.
That movie was really cool. Let's do it. Let's
in a
just
holodeck.
do the whole plot. Well, sometimes it's in the holodeck. Did you ever see? Let's see if I got it. I know it's in my notes, but let me get it up there, so to speak. Did you ever see the episode? It was from the Next Generation, Star Trek Next Generation. It was called Starship Mine.
Doesn't sound familiar.
They take the Enterprise. I'm not sure you and I are going to watch it because, again, the plot's not that important.
Okay.
They take the ship to a starbase, and they're going to do a barium sweep, I believe it's called.
Sounds fancy.
They're going to send cleansing radiation through the ship. It is, however, dangerous, this radiation, so everyone has to be off the ship. Our captain on Next Generation, Captain Picard, goes back to the ship because he forgot his saddle.
Okay.
He's going riding. He forgot his saddle. He gets on the ship and he notices all these people milling around who don't belong there. And then he realizes that he's in the movie Under Siege, starring Steven Seagal.
An American classic. Should be in the Criterion Collection, if you're being honest with me.
And basically the entire episode, which is funny to me because Under Siege also featured Colm Meaney.
Oh,
as one of the bad guys. Yes. Miles O'Brien was one of the bad guys in Under Siege. But on this ship, at one point, the terrorists who take over the Enterprise capture Picard, and they ask him who he is, and he says he's the barber.
Yeah.
And it's just like in Under Siege, where Steven Seagal's like, I'm only a cook. I'm just a cook, man.
That's pretty much his entire career, is him doing that. Why does everyone do anything? I'm just an average citizen who can fight really slow.
Oh man. So I think there are other episodes of Star Trek that are basically, we liked this movie, we're just going to do this movie. At one point, Brannon Braga, who's all over this episode,
better or worse,
for better or worse, Brannon Braga, I'm going to cut to the end. Brannon Braga hates this episode.
Oh.
And he wrote the teleplay, but it had a long formation before it got to his computer and then spewed out everything wrong with this episode. Brannon Braga had basically said at one point, I just really love David Cronenberg's The Fly.
I mean, you just hired Kovic, man. That'd have been easier.
David Cronenberg, as Flobo mentions, is on Star Trek Discovery as Kovic, Dr. Kovic, I believe.
Dr. Kovic, yep.
And I think this is one of the few times David Cronenberg has ever been an actor on Discovery. Yeah. Mostly one of Canada's greatest thriller directors. I'm not saying that with any irony at all. I'm saying that with greatest. Love.
There's a yearly ranking that comes out on Old Canuck magazine, and on top is David.
Look, man, you know I have Canadian in my blood.
Fair enough.
Everybody on my father's side is Canadian.
Yeah.
I love Canada. Canada has done so much for science fiction. Canada, in many ways, is a very parallel universe to the United States. I appreciate that about Canada.
True.
And I love a lot of their artists, Leonard Cohen and David Cronenberg. Just so Canadian. John Candy. So
Carl Ray
Canadian.
Jepsen, Drake, Justin Bieber, Amy Jo.
All right, now you're pushing me off. You're the cat pushing things off the table now. Look at you. Look at you. Why is this on the table? This doesn't need to be here. Okay. So Flobo, what do you know about Ronald D. Moore?
Well, Ronald D. Moore, much like his name's blanking. Big science fiction writer, as known for novelizations as well of major properties. You tell me Battlestar Reboot, but I have not seen Battlestar Reboot. I saw one episode of the original, and I was like, this is not for me. so I think pretty top tier. It's like, is he also Mormon? Like, or that's just Orson Scott Card? I know Orson Scott Card is Mormon, but
correct.
Yeah.
Ronald D. Moore, for the most part, was a writer who submitted scripts during The Next Generation and was such a talent that they actually made him they hired him. They made him staff. He did a lot of executive producing and producing for Deep Space Nine. Craig Robinson has joined us, and he loves Battlestar Galactica.
The premier search engine Bing says Ronald D. Moore identifies as agnostic, so my apologies for assuming he was Mormon.
No problem. I find it very funny that Leo Genesek goes, Glenn Larson is Mormon.
Glenn Larson, that's the guy I was confused with. Because there's a whole article about why Mormon writers tend to be better at science fiction. I
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. The Glenn Larson, of course, from the original Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
When we are talking Ronald D. Moore, in terms of Star Trek, yes, a great creator, behind so many memorable storylines and episodes. But when it comes to Voyager, he had an early involvement, which a lot of people say, oh my God, is that true? Craig Lubin in credits says Glenn Larson did also write The Highwayman. Did you ever see that show, The Highwayman?
I'm looking this up because it sounds familiar, but I don't think it rings a bell at the same time.
It stars Sam Jones, who played Flash Gordon in the awesome movie.
Oh, you know what? I'm confusing with Marvel's Nightman, which is also written by Glenn A. Larson. You remember Nightman with Johnny Domino?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But The Highwayman is something different. Sorry.
So bad. Based on a comic book written by Steve Englehart, one of my favorite writers, who's also very influential in bringing Jon Stewart into the DC universe.
Whoa. Small world. The Highwayman TV series. Wow.
I'm telling you, when us nerds get together, we create magic.
You hear that, Craig? Your magic.
Now, I'm going to start crunching the numbers for you. Threshold was from the second season of Voyager. This was 1996, January of 1996. So this is from the 95-96 season. 94-95 was the season when it debuted. I'm sorry, Mr. Boyce.
I'm trying to think, what was it doing in 95? Space Jam hasn't come out yet, so my life didn't really much had any meaning. I was about 10 years old. I don't know.
Pre-Space Jam is it's just a fog.
Yeah, exactly.
Then a fog of war.
I was 95. Okay,
before Space Jam. I get that though. I get that. There's a lot of cultural milestones in Space Jam. I kind of get it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. With this episode of Voyager, we have one of the weirdest writing credits in the history of Star Trek.
Go on.
The story is by Michael DeLuca.
All right.
Michael DeLuca was the president of New Line Cinema
Oh.
at the time, I believe. Let me find. I did get my Michael DeLuca. Michael DeLuca was a longtime fan of comic books and Star Trek and all things nerdy. Brannon Braga and Ronald D. Moore actually tell the story that they were hanging out with Michael DeLuca. He said, "I love Star Trek. I would love to write an episode." Michael DeLuca has done some writing. Let me try this on you.
Okay.
These are his writing credits, Flobo.
Hit me.
Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. I don't know if you remember the movie In the Mouth of Madness.
No, but Leah Janesic probably does.
It's a bizarre kind of comedy. It was directed and scored by John Carpenter. It's a strange movie. But the most famous movie he wrote was the original film, Judge Dredd.
Oh, wow. Yeah. With Stallone. I am the law.
And I have to say, as a fan of Judge Dredd, I actually thought it was not bad. I mean,
yeah,
really, I like Stallone as Judge Dredd. He wasn't the best Judge Dredd. The ones that came after it were actually better than that.
Yeah.
Can't argue with Carl Urban. Come on now.
I mean, yeah, because you get the helmet on, but you pay Stallone any kind of money, you're not going to say, "Hey, let me get the bottom half of your face." You're getting the entire Stallone, bro.
Yeah, seriously, people do want the whole Stallone.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing about Michael DeLuca, and feel free to look him up. A little bit of a party boy.
Hey.
And for the longest time was famous for something that happened after this, and people said he did this to impress everybody at this party. So there's a party for one of the high muckety mucks at the William Morris Talent Agency.
Muckety muck.
And Michael DeLuca is there with his girlfriend. And suddenly there's a kerfuffle because out on the back balcony, she is doing nice things to him orally.
Oh, probably compliments, you mean?
Not compliments.
I know what you mean. Today's Sunday, John.
One could argue it was the ultimate compliment.
I touched that.
But Michael DeLuca is known for making these very douche bro power moves. I'm doing air quotes as I say power moves.
True.
And that is like that's the cokehead's biggest power move. Is like, you know what, man? I'm going to get a BJ in front of everybody. That'll show them what a baller I am.
I guess. No one's ever like, oh man, he got a BJ. He's great. That's a god tier.
I think you gotta make your way through a lot of cocaine before that makes sense.
Right.
And allegedly, I'm just saying allegedly, Michael DeLuca has done many, many good things in his life, and he's helped many people. So I'm not out here to shoot him down, but I do want to tell you he was a party boy.
Yeah. So you're literally saying drugs were involved in the creation of this episode. Is that what you're saying?
There's on some level.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if that's what got the meeting started. I don't know if that's why Brannon Braga and Ronald D. Moore were like, we should hang out with DeLuca. I don't know why the three of them got together, but the three of them did get together. DeLuca pitched them some ideas. They bought. I love this. And I say this sarcastically. I love that here you and I are scraping by, working hard, trying to entertain people. And if you're super rich and you're already in charge of New Line Cinema, they will pay you money to say something like, hey, what if the fastest you could go is not warp 10? Ooh, cha-ching, here's your check.
And this will be going in stage and go, a lot of hard work and dedication led us to this moment. And if it wasn't for hard work, we wouldn't have got here because you work hard.
and I'm sure the woman at the party was working hard. I'm just saying.
Compliments for everybody.
I'm just saying Hollywood is a strange place. So Craig Lubin, now we're trying not to say it on a Sunday, but we're already beyond it. We've broken the glass in the mirror. So Craig Lubin is saying, so a BJ was in direct responsibility for the lizard babies. Different timeline. The BJ happened in 98, and this happened in, I think, 95. I think 95. So this actually, I think
sorry, John. That's peak Star Trek. Like, actually, as it gets the timeline, this happened then, so it totally retcons that.
The beard on my neck just grew so long as I was going. The minute I said actually, it went boof, big neck beard.
I love you, Craig.
Craig, you're the innocent bystander here. You're just getting.
Actually.
Sorry, man. That's terrible. I hate myself for having done that. But it's true. It's true. Really, peak DeLuca happened right around the end of the century, and he cleaned up his act. So good end to the story there.
Absolutely.
But Michael DeLuca did say one thing, and it is a baller move on the parts of all of the people involved in this episode. They basically said, we've had this paradigm that all warp goes from 1 to 10, and 10 is the top. And that's just how it is.
Yeah.
If you try to go beyond 10, it's a whole different kind of travel and a whole different idea of space. Infinite velocity. So here they are shattering something that had been set up, according to a lot of people, by Roddenberry himself. Roddenberry had said, all we know is you can't go faster than warp 10. Now, that has not always been consistent. Some writing had gotten through during the day, back in the day, where maybe somebody was doing warp 12 or warp 13.
Sure.
But in the overall understanding of how warp goes, this does not go to 11.
So this is where I have my first problem. Besides the fact the hyper evolution thing could be stretched out a couple times, like the idea of going past a barrier, which is something I think it's always a cheap tactic in science fiction because almost everyone does that on some level. But I'm on board. Shouldn't necessarily lead to the evolutionary thing. I feel like there's many ways to have consequences than having one guy who, admittedly, I always forget about. Like, I guess he's like the most like write-offable character ever. I'm always like, Tom, oh yeah, is that Trip? No, that's the other guy. Getting his own episode is great, but at the same time, it's like, why is A lead to B? That's like the first thing I don't quite understand. But
interesting.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. I definitely hear you. And unfortunately, I feel like this happens on Voyager a lot. Why does it happen? Because it says so in the script. They didn't find good reasons. They just found reasons.
Yeah.
And they knew what the outcome was. They knew what they wanted to have as the outcome. And that's bad writing, is it not, objectively?
It's bad writing, but to me, it sounds like it's the result of like mandates, right? Like, remember, if you ever manage a softball team and you have like the friends that you know are good and the friends you know that are not good, you got to find a way to make yourself win, you know? So you're in the middle of season 1, and you're like, oh yeah, this Tom Paris guy's in the background. Has Chakotay ever disrupted anybody in the past couple weeks? No? All right, that's fine. And let's make Jane the in it because you have to pay her, but she's in the back end and done. And it's felt very paint by numbers that way. But still, it's not bad. It is not a bad episode.
Which is so amazing. And let me not forget that. Do not let me forget that, because by the time we get to the end of this episode, I definitely want you to explain how you feel that way.
Okay.
Okay, this was a weird Easter egg early on for me. Did you ever watch $6 Million Man?
I watched the Bionic Woman as a kid and the Bionic Woman reboot as a kid, but the actual $6 Million Man I had not.
In the opening credits, he's trying to land his space shuttle, and he says, "It's breaking up." I think it's she's breaking up. She's breaking.
Yeah.
So when they did that in the first scene with Tom Paris, I thought that was hilarious.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a deep cut for
Yeah, I don't know if that was deliberate at all, but
I think it would
that's
have to be. Yeah.
The scene immediately after that I thought was funny as well, because now you've got Torres, who is half Vulcan, half hottie. She is I love Torres, but one of the things I don't like is you've got Torres, Paris, and Harry Kim. Let me interrupt myself. Yeah, I want to ask you, how do you feel about Harry Kim as a character? He's very.
I still hate him. I still hate him. I know everyone's always like, "Hey, no, it's kind of messed up after all these seasons. He's still the ensign. He deserves it. That racist son of a gun." I won't forget it. Remember the first episode of the pilot where he's like, "I know you, Ferengis. I read about you at Starfleet." It's like, whoa! The one thing they teach you is tolerance, bro. What are you doing, Harry Kim? I'm just kidding. I don't really care about him that much.
You don't know Harry. You would love him if you met him. I've heard some stories that Garrett Wang, who plays Harry,
yeah,
he's a pretty cool dude.
I bet he is. I bet in real life he's a cool dude. But Harry Kim.
After the failure of the experiment on the holodeck, now you've got Torres, Paris, and Kim sitting around a table, kind of jamming with their ideas, like college students down at the at the college bistro, arguing about their ideas. And who should come in but Neelix?
Remember what I said about having to put people in the shows? There you go. Hey guys, I don't know what's going on. I'm a genius. Wow. That's like that. There he is. All right, Neelix. See you later. That's lunch. Let's get the hell out of here.
So ridiculous, that whole scene, especially when Torres is like, "Do you have any food?" And Neelix is like, "I think that there are some Carbarian biscuits somewhere."
Yeah, so you can tell it nothing to do when you're serving coffee in space. Are you kidding me? You decided to go out there wearing an apron.
Very Central Perk.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought. Oh, he's a guitar riff. Warp, am I right? How you doing, Neelix? Could you be any more? Okay, I'm stopping.
No, what's funny about having to explain this stuff to Neelix, which in my mind inspires a line that I'd like to use at some point in a script, which is, "Dumb it down for me. Pretend I'm Neelix."
I second that.
They explain to him infinite velocity, that once you get past warp 10, you are now everywhere all at once. Okay, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm still, I think a lot of cocaine could give you that idea.
Who has so much time in their hands? I know they're lost in space, but they have jobs.
Oh, no, seriously. No, they do have that much time. No. One of the things about being on Voyager is you're constantly trying to come up with things to do, because it is so boring just trying to travel home.
And again, the whole idea is we're going to get home as quick as they can. It'll kill anyone on a way to doing that.
Well, this is a very risky idea, and apparently no one has ever succeeded trying to break warp 10. So that does get pretty exciting, because Neelix accidentally gives them the right idea. Wait a minute. What if technobabble, technobabble, and then Neelix, give me a hug. Well, what did I say?
Can I say what Craig Lubin said? Infinite velocity is not a thing unless you're doing an NYC 80s level of coke. So that's the question I had. If you're everywhere at once, therefore you have no direction, how can you determine velocity without a direction? You're just speed for the sake of being speed? Well, even that's a direction. So whatever.
Well, look, I hate to drag Discovery into this, because why should Discovery be compared to this episode? But I mean, the mycelial network in Discovery is very similar to that. It is a directed network, but the idea is that, if I'm right, that the life of fungi exists on multiple dimensions, and that you can slip into another dimension following these lines that connect fungi throughout our universe.
There's two things of that. One, a lot of people have rejected that's the very same thing what you're saying. A lot of people who are in the circle like, that's dumb. It's mushrooms, bro. But I think the difference is for me is that it's a life form I understand, but it's hyper realistic on this platform, and then it's a understanding how mushrooms communicate with their tendrils. Okay, it's still a jump. It's still fictional, but at least that makes more sense. When you told me like cardinal things we learned in school, like parabolas and x-y axis and velocity, and you're saying infinite velocity, like, well, how can we determine that? Unless you're saying magic's involved.
Right. You know why it worked for me was it related very much to something that was in Animal Man comic books written by Grant Morrison.
Animal Man.
And
Grant Morrison's high all the time.
Well, I mean, a big part of figuring out the mystery behind Animal Man actually is related to taking peyote. So it's not science, it's mystical, but the idea is that there is a dimension beyond ours in which all life is interconnected.
Oh,
and that's how he can become any animal, because he can slip into this other dimension and then actually control. That's how he can control and communicate with animals and use their powers. He doesn't become the animals.
That's what Swamp Thing uses. The Green, the Flash uses the Force. I totally get that. I just don't. I don't know if it's something else. Like if it's something like, oh, we tap into like the X Factor network, I would be on board with that. But you're telling me specifically, yes, duh. Once you get past super fast, you become fast everywhere. It's like,
well, I guess the idea is if you can go beyond time and space, this is the barrier. Breaking warp 10 takes you beyond actually having to travel. As Harry says at one point, going home would take the amount of time that it takes to push a button. And that's the big selling point for this. Everybody's like, because they do a test and it works with these new ideas they quote unquote got from Neelix. And then the success of the test, I kind of love that. It's like, hooray, hooray. And then pull away. They're watching it on a monitor in the space conference room.
Yeah.
And everyone's gathered together, and this is where Chakotay gets to say his lines for the episode.
And it's not Jane, I believe in you. It's actually something of merit.
But
you're doing a good job, Janeway.
For once, it's not him being the good boyfriend to the captain. But he does say the line that just makes me want to retch, which is, I'm excited, but also frightened too. Robert Beltran, you are a saint for saying that crap.
It's like, what's my alternative? Oh, be silent? Okay.
No, I'll take the lines. I really need those residuals in the future. Right. So there's in the conference room, I had this question for you. Flobo, are there a lot of conference rooms in Star Trek because the writers spend a lot of time in conference rooms and that to them is just life?
I mean, you mentioned the central perk thing doesn't work, so you have to meet up somewhere, right? Let's have a meeting. It should have been an email. You got this giant ship. You don't know where the gym is. Like, it's kind of weird, right? How it just goes back to the ready room or the war room or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even remember if this is the ready room because it just looks like a conference room. It just has a big giant table. Everybody's sitting together and kind of smiling at each other because the cast likes each other, and that's awesome. Okay, so Space Mom tells them how great they are. Oh, wait a minute. Joshua Postel says, I'm excited, but I'm frightened too. That's me before a date, LOL.
You get to be excited? You're a lucky man. Usually I'm like, let's get this over with. Can't be alone every night.
Flobo, that is not true. That is not true. LL Flobo. Ladies love Flobo. Come on
really?
now.
Tell me no. You can follow me at Flobo Boys on social media, ladies.
Please do that, by the way. So we get our first real complication, and it's that there's possibly a health problem that Tom has going into this. How likely is this a problem? 2%. And he just like throws a fit like 2%, because what they're saying is it might be a complication for Paris, but you know who could do it? Harry could do it very well.
He's like, I won't let a minority do my job. Me. No, I'm kidding. I didn't. He did not say that. That is totally online. So that's another thing. Let me jump the joke. I'm sorry. I'll take it back.
You're killing me.
Okay, so 2% thing. You have to assume that comes into play of how he hits hyper-evolution. But that scene ends up being such a problem because Jane becomes a salamander super quick. And she doesn't have that issue at all. So it's like, but why even waste the time saying that? This is to give Tom Paris a moment of, you got to let me do this, Captain. You tear me apart, Lisa.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's, why is this important? Because his whole thing is, this is my flight. And then we get this, ever since I was a little kid, people always told me, you're going to grow up and do great things. And my dad used to say, you're going to grow up and do great things one day. And I'm sitting here going, because you're little and good looking and blonde and white. That's why everyone's telling you you're going to do good things.
I can't even get mad at him because he just fades into the background, man. Like usually the strapping white guy, like a Riker, even a Scott Bakula, you're like, oh yeah. But Paris, I'm always like, I forget you're on the show, bro. Like, I'm sorry. What makes that Tom Paris plate joke even funnier in Lower Decks? It's like, oh yeah, that's your favorite.
Oh my God, that's so funny. It's true though. One of the things that I wanted to point out and I forgot was when Harry and B'Elanna Torres, it's Torres, Harry and Torres and Paris are sitting together and they're talking and they're being, sardonic and they're discussing this important thing. I'm just sitting there going, this is not like any other Star Trek with the three friends.
Right.
This is not Kirk, McCoy, and Spock. This is not Data, Wesley, and Geordi. This is not any of that because I don't like any of these three people.
Right. Wow. Dang.
I hate to say it, but there's nothing endearing. Little bit for Harry. I honestly, Harry, I've always kind of had a little like, he seems like a swell guy, but I'm not sure it comes through that often in the show, and I don't think it comes through in the scripts. Yeah, these guys are kind of boring and dry and humorless.
Yeah, Harry would be a good straight man. I don't know what the common term for it is now, but we call it the straight man. But there's no wacky person in that trio at all, which is why on a writing level why they brought in Neelix. But it's like, why bring in Neelix? But you're right.
Neelix is the I wrote comedy early in my career for a producer, and anytime I would write anything broad, he would say, "You don't have to hit me over the head with a salami."
That's kind of funny though.
Yeah, no, but because that's his, like, what a clown would do to be funny is hit me on the head with a salami. That's Neelix up and down. I'm sorry, a Carbanian vegan salami. I have a mullet. And I've said this before. I love the actor who plays him, Ethan Phillips. I love that actor, but he is terrible in this role. I hate that character.
Tell him and his underage girlfriend to step.
Now, his underage girlfriend, Kes, is an assistant to the doctor, and she comes in to the story when Tom Paris starts to change. And it's rapid, and it's very much like Jeff Goldblum in The Fly and David Cronenberg's The Fly, where he can't control what he's changing into, and he becomes really ugly and bleh. But at one point he's like, "I'm gonna die. I want a kiss," and the doctor's like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Not you, her."
Yeah,
and he does die, and then Kes goes over and kisses his corpse.
It's supposed to be cute. A lot of things with Kes is supposed to be cute and endearing, but when you understand like who she is and where she was found, it's kind of like, yeah. I granted the show figured that out. There's like you really can. Yeah. There's some characters you cannot rehab. Thank goodness. But yeah, that was a cringe moment. Stop making me hate this episode. Right? I said I liked it, John. Stop giving me things to say. Wait a minute.
We're just talking about small things here, small little building blocks here. Oh, hang on. Craig's got a great comment. You guys seem to dislike Neelix as much as people dislike Jar Jar. What's your take on Jar Jar, Flobo?
So it's talk about Star Trek being a new fan. I've only seen 2 Star Wars movies, episode 4 and episode 1. And even though Jar Jar was kind of silly there, but it was kind of like he wasn't bothering me at all. I was like, yeah, he wasn't my favorite character, but he was kind of in the background, quite literally. But the hate that guy got, the actor got, it was like totally beyond the pale. But Craig, let me ask you this: we are on a ship with a replicator. Why do we need a chef? Why? What's the chef doing? What can the chef do? A replicator cannot do. Does he know how to make Earth food?
I can answer that, but it's not a satisfying answer. You're not going to love the answer. It takes a lot of energy to power the replicators. They try to conserve energy. I always hate space on a budget. This is one of my least favorite plots ever.
But the thing is, someone decided to make that a point in the story.
That is true.
That's why I hate Neelix. Because they made the whole thing break to fit this guy in, to be like, whoa, coffee?
I know. I think we need a morale officer, she says, like the first time she meets him, the captain. And I'm sitting there going, we've never had a morale officer before. Why do we need one now? Well, because
every time you go anywhere to a hotel and it's like, oh, I'm here for the fun activities. Are you a concierge? Not really, just fun. You're like, oh, God. So yes, you're right, Craig.
Anyway, moving on. The ship does break. The little tiny ridiculous little shuttle does break warp 10, and then it disappears. It cannot be found on these sensors.
Particles.
I would have to go back and watch it again, but I believe Chakotay says sensors and sensors in the same episode. I think he uses both pronunciations.
My ears perked up once. I believe a sensor was dropped, but I can't remember if it was the same sensor.
I know there was a Tuvok sensors, but that's like one of the rarest examples of the Vulcan accent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got you.
So I'm with that. I'm down with that. It's like, yeah, you're a Vulcan. You say sensors. Hell yeah, you do.
It's like when a guy you grew up with drops sorry. You're like, excuse me? Sorry? I feel betrayed.
My least favorite, and again, this is white people criticizing white people. My least favorite is when I hear an American use something British, like, "Oh, I'll ring you."
Oh yeah. Well, he said the whole like the classiness of it all, right? I'm a spot peckish. Let's have a bit of supper.
Just half a mo.
A Jill in the glass.
So one thing that happens that's very cool, in the Joseph Campbell, the monomyth of the hero,
right?
Most myths do adhere to this this framework that Joseph Campbell pointed out. And one of the things that happens is the hero receives a boon, receives a sort of otherworldly, maybe supernatural gift. We get that here. Once Tom goes beyond warp 10, then he gets all this information for the computers about where everything is. And that, I'd say, is my favorite thing about this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because they realize now they have like the giant Rand McNally map that you used to buy at the gas stations, like the big atlas. They actually have that now. Now they just need to navigate it. That helps the entire series move forward. I actually am so in love with that. I kind of like Michael DeLuca for that.
Yeah.
Because they're not just charting a course now. Now they understand what's ahead. Now they understand, different things that are going to happen in their various routes that they're going to try to take. And we needed that. It also makes cartography very, very important. And the Department of Cartography exists on every ship, but this was the first time in a Star Trek that I ever saw it really used. And I really like that as well.
Right. Absolutely. Cartography is one of those things where uh in the final frontier, right? You think that'd be the best thing that's possibly used. If you see more of that, I can understand why you will shy away from that because it's kind of like not like interesting it's not very sexy, but it is interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So let's jump ahead. This weird transformation that Paris is going through. He doesn't breathe air anymore. Air is poison to him.
Sucks.
He dies. Then he comes back and he's got extra organs.
Jealous.
There are so many strange things going on with him, and he manages to break out. He manages to find the captain.
Yep.
Get to the shuttle, reroute things so that the shuttle can leave the ship and they can't like get a tractor beam on him. He blasts ahead. Now, this I think is where your timing question can be answered. He blasts ahead going past warp 10. That now causes this change. We don't see it on screen, but it causes this change in Janeway as well. So they've gone way, way, way ahead, Flobo, and they've ended up on a planet. They've devolved into lizard people, and then they
Devolved or super evolved.
Well, that is a good question. We don't know the difference between the two. It comes up over and over again. Is it evolution or is it de-evolution? And it comes up so much, I actually think they don't know. I don't think they settled on it.
Yeah.
But Keith Jacobson jumping in, and Keith Jacobson is a great actually guy, but he's super smart.
Shout out to the emojis in the chat. This is Craig. Actually.
Look, it's Star Trek. There's going to be some actuallys. Keith says, actually, that's not the way evolution works. Duh. You need survival pressure and a random mutation that makes survival easier. That's true.
Yeah, like dying.
Different survival pressure would lead to different evolution. Yeah, there wouldn't be a standard evolution built in.
I think the biggest survival pressure is being on a ship with Neelix. That's just
yeah, they've been through hell.
I will mutate AF.
They have gone through it, is what I'm saying. By the time Voyager catches up, time has passed. Quite a bit of time, actually. We don't know how much, but they do know enough. Okay, there's a lot of magic medical stuff going on here where they can detect the DNA of Janeway and Paris, even though they've changed into different beasts. They get down to this planet. They, hit them with knockout rays. They're going to bring their bodies back.
They flop pretty hard too. I was like, damn. I seem inhumane, but they're not even real. I don't know.
That's like One Punch Charlie stuff right there. Right. That's like, damn, you guys are easy to take out. How are you highly evolved? But
take that, nature.
After they knock these two out, then they see little baby lizards. They take back their people and they leave the babies.
They have
3 baby lizards on this planet, and off they go. The doctor, through medical magic, is able to turn them back into human beings. And now we get things like, there's this line in here, and you know me, I love to do my Kate Mulgrew imitation.
And Picard too, by the way.
There's a great line with Chakotay and Tuvok where Chakotay says, I'm picking up traces of human DNA. It's them, although I have to admit I'm not sure which one is the captain. And Tuvok says, the female, obviously.
Oh, Tuvok.
Why are you so dumb?
Yeah, imagine that. Vulcan sass. I was like, of course.
Captain Janeway, in hearing this story about their lizard babies, says to Paris, I thought about having children, but I must say I never considered having them with you. Burn! Burn, burn.
Hasn't he been through enough, Janeway? Yeah, the dunk on him too. Dude.
There's another, I don't know if I have it here. There's another thing where Paris basically says, look, I'm sorry I impregnated you. And she said, well, I don't know. A lot of times it's the female that initiates that.
Right. So you have to do that, right? Because it's creepier, and it's because you knocked out the captain. It wasn't like I'll go. It was like Captain went in there. I'll save you. She was knocked out. So of course you got to write the whole like, yeah, I would love to do it because it's my decision. It's not with you, beta male or zeta male or what have you. But to me, again, it's just so quick. I understand the gravitational time, and time is a relative construct, but. And I'm not saying it should be the entire season arc about breaching Warp 10, but I've been fun to see how any ways you can exploit what Warp 10 is. If this was a show, if it was discovering what's past Warp 10, and this was the episode where it caused a mass evolution, I'm on board. But you gave me this giant concept that doesn't quite really work for me, but it's a giant concept to get them home. You say, oopsie daisy, you scrap the whole thing. It goes, well, what was the whole point of that? But that said, I do like the idea of evolution. I do like the idea that we went so far in the future, you can start new life, and how that started. Very biblical in that sense. Tom Paris getting able to have his own episode is fun. And the idea of going beyond the rules of any kind of property or how you break the formula, I can't knock it for that.
There is a line that the mutated Tom Paris, and there's quite a bit of time where the mutated Tom Paris is just ranting and raving and mad at people and trying to, he's off the hook. Again, very much like a cokehead. I'm not saying anything about anybody. I'm just saying, a comparison. But he says at one point, the present and the past, they're both in the future. And I honestly feel like they kind of stuck to that. Like, that was kind of what they were looking at here was, why do they devolve? I honestly think it's more of a reference to the movie Altered States, where if you go deep in your mind, you might actually trigger something that turns you into a caveman.
Right.
That you've sort of unlocked humanity. You've kind of taken the defining borders out of humanity. Should they have? I don't know. Did they?
Right.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. Whether or not it's evolution or devolution or a branching of the Homo erectus or Homo sapiens, it's one thing to be discussed, which I think is a cool idea. But there has to be some prop master or costume design going like, they're what now? They're catfish. They're salamanders. Okay. All right. Okay. I mean, you could change our idea. You change our minds. No. All right. Applying the whiskers. You can stop us. No.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I mean, it's kind of crazy. What they did was they did build the two, quote unquote, adult salamander lizard people. And then based on them, they created CGI models for the babies.
Right.
It kind of looks good. I actually kind of liked how that all looked.
It looks great, but I still don't understand why that's the choice. I'm not saying you have to be bipedal, but it's kind of like, that's the link. The A to B link I'm looking at. Like there was no explanation as to why they formed change for what it was. Was it an altered state where we don't have to use our limbs anymore? Was it devolving, going back to primordial soup, like single cell organisms? If that's the case, then that's like a stopgap until the final form should. I don't know. I'm getting into the whole weeds there. But to me, it was kind of weird that was the choice.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And actually, let me go to basically quotes. Robert Duncan McNeil, who plays Tom Paris, had said that when he got the script, he had no idea what it was saying. He didn't understand it at all. Most of the blame gets shifted to Brennan Braga.
Mm-hmm.
Brennan Braga was the supervising producer of the show. So high up in the decision-making process, the preparing shows process, this is what Brennan Braga says. I wrote the episode, or at least the teleplay, because the idea came from Michael DeLuca. And it had some good intentions behind it. I had a good premise, breaking the warp 10 barrier. I don't know where this whole devolving into a lizard thing came from. I think I was trying to make a statement about evolution not necessarily evolving towards higher organisms, that evolution may also be a de-evolution. I'm a big fan of Devo myself, so I kind of get that. Back to Brandon Braga. We kind of take it for granted that evolution means bigger brains, more technology, more refined civilization, when in fact, for all we know, we're evolving back toward a more primordial state. Ultimately, who can predict? He said that early on. Later in 2011, he said, I was trying something. It was my homage, I guess, to David Cronenberg's The Fly.
Mind you, this is the same network that aired Moesha. Why? No one asked for that. What is going on? In 40 minutes?
Desmond Pfeiffer. They aired that as well. Yeah.
In 40 minutes. Okay. Props to you. That is a very bold statement.
Brennan Braga has said that he thoroughly edited the script during the rewrite process. He remarked, it was very much a classic Star Trek story, but in the rewrite process, I took out the explanation, the idea behind the ending, that we evolve into little lizards because maybe evolution is not always progressive. He had said this before. I think it suffered greatly. I got the note that it wasn't necessary, but in fact, it was. It had a lot to do with what the episode was about. It was a big mistake on my part for taking it out. In 2003, after it became clear that this episode was a joke to most of the fans and was regarded over and over on, the best of, the worst of Star Trek, it was regarded by many people as the worst Star Trek episode ever. Brandon Braga said, it's a terrible episode. People are very unforgiving about that episode.
When you do a shot anything creative and it misses, you can either say it sucked out the gate, which some people do, or say, oh, well, we had fun making it. Hopefully people come around, because they might. And if they haven't come around, all you can do is like, okay, you've told me, the audience has told me, because we are art and karma. It's not a good episode, but it's not so much a bad episode as just a condensed one, to the point where things fall apart at the seams. Like, why are you going to Warp 10 now? Why is the concept dropped? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. No, I definitely hear what you're saying there. And now I would like to take you to the twist ending.
What?
You've been watching this show for an hour and 4 minutes. It's time for you to get the twist ending. Highly regarded at the time as not a great episode. The reception from the fans, and you got to remember, in 1994, 95, 96, so this is like 95, 96, this season. The internet is alive and well. CompuServe, AOL, they're still going great guns out there. I don't know about Prodigy. Netscape. There's a lot of message boards, a lot of fandom getting together. And of course, the executives working at Paramount and Star Trek are watching what the fans say, and they cannot believe how much the fans hate this. They hate this episode.
Yeah.
So it's considered a big failure. And yet they win the Emmy for outstanding makeup for a series, specifically for Robert Duncan McNeil in his devolving makeup.
I love it. And if that is not what art and commerce is, then we don't know, because some guy at UPN's like, an Emmy, great.
I mean, and I think this from show business too, but I've seen this discussion with high muckety mucks. I think most people know this exists. If a show wins an Emmy, they're like, I don't even care what the show's about. We got an Emmy.
Yeah.
We got an Emmy. We got an Emmy. When you're UPN,
dance.
when you're UPN and you're winning Emmys, it's a freaking miracle.
Yeah.
Because Moesha isn't pulling down any Emmys.
Yeah. Moesha, SmackDown, and Platypus Man or Pigsty are not going to be the ones to bring
Shasta McNasty is not pulling down any Emmys.
Shasta McNasty.
So
Jake Busey.
It's really exciting. Even better, even better, there's a little cherry on top of the cherry on top of the sundae here. In order to win that Emmy, they beat out Deep Space Nine.
So Voyager better confirmed.
I mean,
like
Voyager, as it turns out, do I have that here? Voyager was nominated for 33 Emmys in the run of the 7 seasons of the show, and they won 7. They won 7 Emmys. That is really pretty good.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Especially,
I mean, Voyager doesn't tend to be a lot of people's favorites. I think we have some people that disagree in the chat, but like usually when you talk to a Star Trek fan, it's like, oh, I like this Voyager, this that. So props.
Voyager's an unusual one. I actually have a buddy that I've been working on this play that I've been doing. And he was like, well, I'm mostly a Voyager Enterprise guy. That's what I grew up watching. And I'm like, oh my God, you're like Flobo. You're like
90s kids. Yeah.
You're an endangered species. I have to protect you from predators. Oh my God, you're rare. And that's exciting to me, actually, that exists, that I'm one of those old school fans that gets excited every time we get a new fan.
True. We need people like you.
And because it means they're going to make more Star Trek, which is what I want. Okay, so that'll pretty much do it for Threshold. You got any notes on your notepad there, Mr. Boyce?
I can see why it won so many awards. Let's see. Tom Paris is so forgettable as a character. I'm always like, who is that guy? Oh yeah, that's better already. Tom says it's the first time in 10 years he feels like he has a life to risk and he's not sent to psych eval.
Damn.
And Janeway just sends him after pleading. That's just bad captaining. That's what I have. Tom's allergic to water. Well, that sucks. Chakotay gets to be a captain for like 20 seconds. And you go so fast, you begin to hyper evolve that you turn to a salamander. That sort of thing never happened to the Flash. So that's what I have.
Oh, damn. Has been hurled.
My life sucks. All right, go ahead. What? Janeway, no.
Well, the backstory to Tom Paris is basically that he was doing jail time when she got him to join the mission that became Voyager being stuck way off in the Delta Quadrant. So, he had been in jail. I think that was one of the reasons why the last 10 years was so bad. I don't know.
You say like that, I'm taking a psych eval.
I can't say you're wrong. I mean, for me, it's like, hey, you have all your meals with Taurus and with Harry, with Neelix drooling on your shoulder. Yeah, life is pretty rough for Tom Paris. That's what I'm thinking. Mr. Boyce, June is a very special time of the year.
It is.
It brings us many wonderful things. My friend Gina's birthday. My friend Zach's birthday, Father's Day, Juneteenth.
That's today.
Father's Day, and Juneteenth is celebrated tomorrow, I believe. But
Observed tomorrow, celebrate today.
Observed. Good point.
Yeah,
Good point.
Yeah.
What I especially love about June is it is Flobo Boyce birthday month.
Yeah. Party.
And folks, you can follow Flobo a bunch of different ways. You can support him a bunch of different ways.
Oh, yeah.
And you can join his Patreon. He's usually too shy to bring it up. That's why I like to bring it up, because I'm a member of his Patreon. And I want you to join too.
I do the face when I bring up Uncle Bunk's trunk, so I totally get it. But yes, patreon.com/Flobo Boys. I do bonus interviews. I have the Flobitos Book Club, Flobo Tries, poems, gig blogs, and more. My birthday is actually this coming Saturday, the 25th. I was like to say my half birthday is Christmas, so we get to celebrate that way. But let's say you don't want to do the Patreon thing. You want to buy yourself some drip, some shirts, some hats. Flobito.threadless.com. That's FLOBITO.threadless.com. Buy a t-shirt and support the homie.
Yes. Show your love to Flobo. Thank you so much for showing your love to this show. Thank you for being with us. And next week is going to be a pre-recorded episode. I've warned you ahead of time. A pre-recorded episode.
Sorry, guys.
Because Mr. Boyce has got things to do. He's got a busy weekend.
Man.
And it's going to be fun. I will be running the tape, and we will still be able to get comments on the screen. But sometime this week, Mr. Boyce, you and I have to get together and pre-tape our next one.
Yeah.
Do you remember what this one's called? I'm actually asking because I'm not sure.
It's The Heart of Glory from the Next Generation, episode 20, season 1.
I am trying a new approach with Mr. Boyce. After forcing him to watch a bunch of holodeck episodes, which he didn't like, I have a new goal. I don't know if I can ever get you to like a holodeck episode, but we'll pick that up later and try that. I just didn't want to do too many holodeck episodes in a row
because you know that's lame.
So now I'm trying my new thing, which is Flobo doesn't properly know Worf, the character of Worf. What is your impression of Worf, Mr. Boyce?
He's a wuss.
How does this happen?
He's a wuss.
How does this happen? How does someone think Worf, the most badass character in all of Next Generation, how does somebody think he's a wuss?
You can't go to the Klingon houses of Discovery where they're just these savages that practice the kuvma to someone being like, oh, humans, they are weak. Oh, I just can't do it. I don't know Worf, apparently.
Leo Genesec saying, you don't know Worf. Well, look, here's the thing. Among all of the comedians and comedy writers and funny, exciting people that I know, and Flobo is one of my favorites, I've got another friend, Chris, and he's hilarious. He says the exact same thing. He's been saying it for 20 years.
Yeah.
Worf's a wuss. Why do you guys like him? Like, what?
He is a wuss. Sorry, Joshua Postel in the chat. He's a wuss. An absolute wuss.
Let me get that up there.
He got Klingon measles in an episode. Klingon measles? Measles?
You don't understand Worf. You don't understand him.
Whatever. Take us out. Take
you
home, Captain.
I'm going to take you home. All right. So, yes, next week, be sure to join us for Heart of Glory from Star Trek The Next Generation. And till then, Mr. Boyce, would you please do the honors and say,
live long and prosper, baby.
Yeah, you beautiful nerd.